4 plants, 1 raised bed, 2 summers back to back. And the difference between them was 60 pounds of tomatoes. Not because anything in the ground changed, not because I switched seeds, amended the soil, or found some miracle fertilizer. The plants looked the same. The bed was the same. The sun was the same. The only variable was how water reached those roots, because the thing quietly gutting most home tomato yields isn't a pest. It isn't a disease. It isn't even bad luck with the weather. It's a watering habit almost everyone has, and nobody questions. Here's what keeps me up about this. The gardeners dealing with split fruit, black rot on the bottom, plants that bloom beautifully in early summer, then just go flat. Those people are trying. They're showing up. They're caring for those plants every single day. That daily effort is actually part of the problem. What I want to show you today is the underlying logic of how a tomato plant actually drinks. Something that took me 15 years to figure out through trial and failure. Once you understand it, every decision you make around watering gets sharper. And I'll close with a low-cost trick that delivers water exactly where the plant needs it, without you standing there with a hose. For most of my gardening life, my routine was simple. After dinner, I'd head out back, hose in hand, and give each plant a generous feeling splash before dark. The foliage was dark and lush. The soil surface looked consistently damp. By every visible measure, those plants appeared well cared for. But by mid-July, year after year, the same picture emerged. Romas with that ugly black patch at the base, tomatoes cracking at the shoulders, leaves going yellow from the soil upward, climbing the stem week by week. Strong flowering in June, then a plateau nothing could break. Calcium additives, foliar sprays. The problems kept coming back. The shift happened when I dug into research on how tomatoes actually develop their root systems and take up water. It reframed everything. Given the right conditions and deep, loose soil, a tomato can extend its roots well beyond 30 centimeters. In ideal circumstances, reaching 60 centimeters or more. This isn't a windowsill herb. It's a plant whose wild ancestors developed across the valleys and coastal ranges of South America, some in genuinely harsh, dry conditions. And that deep-seeking root instinct hasn't disappeared. The whole architecture of the plant is oriented around going deep to find moisture. A nightly surface rinse works directly against that instinct. Why shallow roots are the root of most tomato problems. When a tomato only ever finds moisture in the top few centimeters of soil, that's where its roots concentrate. Roots that live near the surface are exposed roots. They cook in afternoon heat. They fluctuate wildly with each watering, and they lack the reach to pull nutrients and minerals efficiently from deeper layers. The result is a plant on a constant seesaw, saturated one evening, dry by midday the next. That oscillation, not a missing mineral, not bad soil, is what triggers the 2 most common tomato complaints. Blossom end rot, that dark leathery patch at the base of the fruit, is almost universally blamed on calcium. And calcium is involved, but not in the way most people think. The mineral is typically present in adequate amounts in any reasonably managed garden soil. What fails is the plant's ability to transport it consistently, which depends entirely on steady moisture in the root zone. Interrupt that flow with erratic wet-dry cycles, and calcium uptake drops. The fruit pays the price. Fruit splitting follows the same pattern. Slow, steady growth during a dry window, then a sudden large drink, and the internal pressure builds faster than the skin can accommodate. The tomato cracks, not because it got too much water in total, but because it got it all at once. Consistent depth is the fix, not more water, not less. The right amount delivered reliably to where the roots actually live. Reading soil moisture before you ever turn on the tap. Stop reading the surface of your soil. It dries out fast under sun exposure, even while the ground several inches down remains perfectly adequate. Instead, push your index finger into the soil roughly 2 inches from the main stem, as deep as your second knuckle. Approximately 8 to 10 centimeters. What you feel at that depth is what actually matters. Soil that feels cool and faintly moist. The texture of a cloth that's been wrung out means the plant is fine. Dry and granular means it's time to water. Saturated and heavy, with moisture pressing back, means you've overdone it and need to hold off for a couple of days. Schedule your watering checks, not the waterings. The calendar tells you when to look. The soil tells you what to do. The deep soak principle. Replace frequent small doses with infrequent thorough ones. A mature tomato in peak summer needs roughly 4 to 8 liters per plant, delivered slowly and directly at the base every 3 to 5 days. Not a quick pass each evening, a long, deliberate soak a couple of times a week. When water is applied slowly in volume, it percolates down 30 to 45 centimeters. The deep roots get genuine access to moisture. As the top layer dries over the following days, the roots extend downward in search of water, building deep, resilient structure. You're developing a plant that handles heat and dry spells, rather than one that panics the moment you miss a day. The target is always the soil, never the leaves. Damp foliage is an open invitation for fungal disease. Early blight and septoria leaf spot both move quickly once established. Water in the morning, between 6 and 9. The soil absorbs it before heat builds, and the plant heads into the afternoon well supplied. Adjusting through the season. Newly transplanted seedlings need water every 2 to 3 days at around half a liter to a liter per plant. As roots extend, widen the gap between sessions. By full summer, with a fruit-bearing plant, aim for a 3 to 5 day cycle. During a prolonged heat wave above 32 degrees Celsius, every 2 days may be necessary, but keep the volume high. Don't revert to daily sprinkles. Volume and depth stay non-negotiable. After heavy rain, skip the next watering entirely and probe the soil first. Far more established plants are lost to watering on top of saturated ground than to any real drought. A healthy plant holds its leaves upright and firm through the morning. Mild wilting and afternoon heat is normal. Stomata close to conserve moisture and the plant recovers by evening. Don't react to that. Watch for leaves drooping before 8 in the morning. That's genuine thirst. Soak it deeply. Persistent yellowing from the lowest leaves upward while the soil stays wet means overwatering. Let the bed dry for several days. I spent over a decade doing this wrong, and I want to name something clearly. The habits that cause these problems don't look like neglect. They look like care. The daily evening visit with the hose, keeping that soil surface visibly dark, never letting a day go by without giving the plants attention. That's what being a good gardener is supposed to look like. And it's exactly what seed packets and garden centers implicitly reinforce. That advice optimizes for visibility and routine, not for how a tomato root system actually functions. It's guidance built for reassurance, not results. The products designed to treat blossom end rot, cracking, and fungal disease exist in large part because these watering habits are so universal. Calcium sprays, disease control, soil additives. They address symptoms that often wouldn't exist if the root zone were getting consistent, deep moisture. You can't patent a watering rhythm. The most effective interventions are often the ones that generate the least commercial interest. Here's something a market gardener showed me years ago that I've used every season since. Take any clean 1-gallon plastic container, the kind that holds milk or vinegar. Pierce 8 to 10 small holes evenly around the lower section of the jug. Sink it into the bed a hand's width from your tomato's main stem, leaving just the opening above ground. No lid. When it's time to water, fill the jug instead of running the hose at the surface. The water releases gradually over hours, directly into the deep root zone. 0 runoff, 0 leaf contact, 0 waste. 30 seconds to fill. The rest happens on its own. Plant the jug, trust the depth. That's the whole shift.